Hello again, everybody. Very good to see you. Thank you for joining us for what should be a really good session over the next few minutes here on the Tech and Innovation stage, featuring Unity 3D. Now, if you were with us yesterday over on the headline stage, and I can already see many of you you will have seen Peter Moore, the former Liverpool CEO who now heads up Unity's sports and live division, demonstrate the future reality of sport. And it was pretty spectacular stuff. If you saw it, I'm sure you will agree. And we thought that once Peter had given the initial demonstration and talked through it and shown you a bit of it, we would spend some time here having a little bit of a deeper dive into Unity's sports solution, and we're going to do so over the next few minutes in the company of our two guests. You can ask them questions, of course, at the same time. You'll be tired of hearing me saying this, but do get the Leaders app. Do click on speaker interaction, do write in a question, it will come to us and we'll be able to field it as we go through the session. And if you don't have the Leaders app, slido.com, slido.com is the website you need, SLIDO, hashtag Leaders is the code. I feel like I'm going to be saying that in my sleep, but anyway, let's get going now in the company of our two guests, and I'm delighted that they're both able to be with us from the United States. So please welcome to the stage Shrey Malhotra, Head of Technology at Unity Sports, and Tian, Head of Business Operations and Partnerships for Sports at Unity.
Hey everyone, super excited to be here. Following up on Peter's amazing presentation and demo yesterday, we are here to talk about Unity Metacast and giving you a glimpse under the hood of the technology that's able to power all of the great things that you saw on yesterday's demonstration. Before we go forward, I want to just share a glimpse of the future. What does the future of sports look like in the metaverse? We talk a lot about the metaverse, and what it really is the blending of the virtual and the physical, and we're applying it to sports. If you think about physical consumption, always going into the stadium, imagine bringing interactive 3D and that capability to make a fan's experience more entertaining and more utilitarian. Imagine during halftime, you know that my friend Mike is in the bar over there and that I know that I need to start ordering an Uber because data tells me that if I wait until the end of the game, I'm going to have to wait for another hour. Look at digital consumption and how we're currently distributing sports content to the world right now. We have OTT, we have linear broadcast, but think about bringing it to the next level and making it interactive and immersive and 3D instead of just purely passive and lean back. There's other ways for us to think about how to blend the virtual and the physical together, including creating compelling, really memorable marketing experiences, making the sports better, safer, making decisions faster and more accurate and less controversial. But really, today I'm here to talk to you about volumetric technology. So what you might ask, what is volumetric? And I want to start with a definition. It's the process and all the software and hardware underlying it for capturing, viewing, and interacting with the real world, and that's anything from static objects to moving people, and it's all in 3D.
What about a pet? What about dogs?
Yeah, you can find your pets and capture it in 3D. So what I want to highlight here is that what you're seeing is not video. It's millions of data points, very densely packed inside a 3D object, beautifully represented like this. And because it is data, what you can do now is see that content from any angle, any perspective, and at any moment in time. So again, I stress this is not video footage, this is data. And what's beautiful about data is that you can do so much more with it now. You're no longer just manipulating linear 2D footage or linear video content. You're really fully tapping into the power of 3D data and using it to elevate the sports experience, how you manage it, how you consume it, how you monetize it, and it really benefits stakeholders from across the entire industry.
What's your favorite?
I think my favorite is the potential of elevating the second screen experience for fans. Imagine me watching a live match on my smart TV, but on my phone, I am able to have a second screen, except instead of just consuming it linearly and watching another feed, I can now manipulate, orbit, change the angle, watch it from anywhere, tap on the player and see real-time stats in any moment in time, purchase a pair of shoes, immediately go to the checkout and visualize all the data overlaid on top of the regular linear programming, all at the same time that the real match is happening. That is the promise we're bringing to the fans, to consumers, but it doesn't stop there. It's the same foundational technology that you can leverage for the marketing of it, for creating new digital content offerings, for new media deals for broadcasters and distributors, and fundamentally for you to perfect and improve the game.
Basically everything.
Yes. And so today we're super excited to announce to the world with all of you here at Twickenham Stadium about Unity Metacast, the volumetric platform that is going to transform and elevate the future of the sports experience. And without further ado, I am going to let Shrey take over and help explain the magic and all the engineering that goes underneath this.
Thank you, Tian. We don't have enough time to go through all the magic and engineering. We'll sit here for two days just talking about that. If somebody wants to talk about that, I'll be around till Sunday, so we can sit down and talk all engineering. We nerd out what happens behind the scene. Before we get into this, I want to say I hope you've gone to our booth and actually experienced this firsthand. If you haven't, please do that. Hopefully Peter convinced you to do that, but if not, today we'll convince you, and make sure before the end of the day you go out and actually pick this up, because we believe this is going to be the future and this is how we will visualize sports from now on. So what goes behind the scenes? So basically what Metacast is basically it's a comprehensive technology stack that enables you to craft and deliver experiences. So after the moment you captured, you can actually take it, our Unity Metacast system help you take it from one point and deliver it to millions of devices or even billions of devices at some point across the world. And we want to make it so simple for you guys for anybody to pick it up, put the cameras in stadiums, basketball court, or the octagon as Peter talked about, and then basically take it from there and distribute to millions of fans, broadcasters in different formats, not just interactive, but also video if you like. So what it includes is an end-to-end platform that helps you move the data from one point to the other. In addition, we have cloud services which help you manage the content because you will have massive amount of volumetric data being captured every day. And as Peter said, content is king the other day. You want to manage all of that. You want to make sure you have archives for it. You can go back in time and compare it with what happened 1 year back or even the last season with what's happening now. Definitely once that happens, you want to hand it off to all the creative geniuses and the creative directors and the teams that you have that produces these content. So we've created very simple, easy to use tools that will feel very familiar to the traditional broadcasting sequencers, the editing tools, so they don't have to start again from scratch and learn a new tool, but everything will be in 3D now. And finally, our advancement in AI and ML, we will be able to unlock the next generation full potential of data, and not just volumetric data, but the data coming from different sources, and how we can combine and augment both sides and bring them together in a meaningful way. So let's talk about this end-to-end. You've seen the demos, you've understood what it is, what it looks like, but how do we get to that point? How do we start, and where do we start, and where does it actually end? We don't know where it ends, because as we talk, it's a massive, we could do things that were not possible. So let's start with the capture side. It could be a stadium, it could be a basketball court, as I said, or an octagon. You start with multiple cameras, you capture the raw footage. We'll take all that footage, then we do something called a 3D reconstruction from that. That way you get the data points that Tian was mentioning. We call them voxels or 3D pixels, and we basically store them and compress them and prepare it for rendering in real time. After you process and you run all of this, then simultaneously what we also do, as I was talking about the AI and the ML part, you can tag players. You can instead of manually going and saying and identifying what player is, the jersey numbers or anything else, or the balls, what you could do is AI and ML will take over and start recognizing these players, will add the metadata for you, will add additional data sources if you have, but we can identify what's happening in the scene. Is it a corner kick? Is it a goal kick? Is it a takedown in an octagon? So different things can happen with ML, and you can use that intelligence in the next step. The next step is when you hand it over to your creators and creative directors, and all that intelligent information along with the volumetric data can help them craft experiences quickly. So rather than manually somebody sitting for hours and hours and keyframing all of that, our AI and ML can actually help you decide which camera to pick at a given point. We'll give you recommendations on like, this camera might be good for this shot, and how do you transition from one camera to the other. After that, obviously, once it's ready to go, it's time to distribute it to the rest of the world. We actually help you stream and render this device either in real time or on demand. And obviously, once it's in the hands of the fans, you want to create more personalized experiences. You want to start monetizing, as Peter talked about yesterday. It's like one of the examples that we have is that we've tested and Peter showed yesterday was in-experience dynamic advertisements. So you could target the users, you could target the region, their preferences. So rather than just being like, oh, here's a generic bunch of ads, you can actually make them feel like this was built for them, and it was personalized for them rather than for everybody as in one experience. Finally, to run all of this, you require a robust underlying infrastructure that helps you deliver the data from one side to another. So at Unity Metacast, we are working really hard to make sure that once you pick up the data, once you capture the data, we will take it from there and deliver it to all your fans across the world. So let's quickly, so this is a sneak peek. This is the first time a sneak peek outside of Unity that we are showing our editor or the sequencer that we call it. As I said, this will look very familiar to your traditional broadcast timelines and like the Adobe Premieres, the DaVinci Resolves of the world. What you could do is you could bring in volumetric content from the cloud. You can drag clips, you can insert clips, you can sequence them, add audio, you can add effects, visual effects, text, lower thirds, anything that you do in a traditional broadcast, you can bring in and do that. But now this is in 3D. And this helps creators craft that experiences in minutes. And then you can export, as I said, you can export it either as an interactive demo, as you saw yesterday. You can send it to an iPad or an iOS device. But also what you could do is you could create a video out of it and just show it on a Jumbotron. So imagine you have an impossible camera angle that you want to show off, and you want to have a replay of that running on a big screen in the stadium. You could take these and add it to your existing pipeline and then send it out to the Jumbotron. And finally, as I was talking about advancement in artificial intelligence and machine learning and deep learning algorithms, we are able to understand what's happening in the scene. So I have to say that what you see on the left is actually we are estimating where their hands are, where their faces are, because this is not a 3D model. When we capture them as it is. It's a soup of voxels, soup of points in space. We don't understand what it is. It looks like a human being. That's why we use machine learning and artificial intelligence to actually understand where their hands are. And on the other side, in the scene understanding, is to segment the players. As I said, we can identify players and segment them and understand who's who. And over time, so this is just the beginning, and we are just scratching the surface of what can be done with machine learning and volumetric. We also believe that we can get other data sources coming in from, because obviously as we were talking, the data is an important part of it. So data is, if you have data on machine learning, you could use a lot of stuff where you could understand what the game state is, and then combine all of that and create a very, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how we combine, like the rugby demo yesterday that Peter showed off, is like
different
the action.
Data visualizations.
Yeah, different visualization. But imagine you don't have to craft it yourself, because we would combine that data coming from a source and combine it with our player segmentation tools and player tagging and metadata tools. So what do we do with this?
I will take over from here and just summarize everything that you guys have just heard, all the engineering, just scratching the surface, and a little bit of the technology that goes underneath that. And I want to bring it back to the context of sports. What does that mean then? Well, we think that the future of sports is going to move and be at once 2D and 3D, lean back and lean in, passive and immersive, linear and interactive, socially generated and professionally produced. So what we're thinking here is building a platform that allows you to realize all of that, achieve all of that at once, so you give your fans and your consumers and your athletes and federations and coaches everything that they possibly need to realize this next level of the sports experience. Think about viewing the action from any angle, allowing you to view impossible ones, a lot of the gestures and the movements that we all take for granted on our smartphones. Imagine applying that for traditional sports. Again, once you're in a digital environment, all of that advertising can be personalized. The background can be changed to anything. Change it to Mars, change it to somewhere else in the world. Smart camera systems, that is utilizing AI. And finally, the ability to visualize data and make intelligent decisions from it. All of that wrapped together, imagine providing this to your consumers and to your coaches, the next level of the sports app, except this time, it's with real-time 3D.
What about VR and AR?
Oh, well, that's one of the 20 platforms that we currently support. So again, the endpoint can be anything. Web, mobile, smart TVs, consoles, anything that you reach your consumers in, you can find them and tap into them regardless of where they are and what device they use. That is the power of volumetric data. Oops. Sorry, one more thing. Go back, that's a big reveal. Anyway, so a lot of you guys have come to the booth to ask this question repeatedly. So how fast can you do this? What is the latency? Can this really happen in real time? Too bad I already unveiled it. But
nobody saw it.
Can we turn the volume down?
Can we cut the audio on that?
Cut the volume.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, the big reveal is like, we can do this in real time, or near real time. So basically what you're looking at is one of the green stage studios that are volumetric partners. So at the back, you see the stage. On the left side, there's a monitor that has a video feed coming in from the stage. But on the right is Unity Metacast running in near real time. You could see they're playing football or they're pretending to play football. And then on the right, we can stream this in real time inside Unity Metacast. As the technology progresses, as the technology advances and the ecosystem becomes bigger, what we will do is what we believe is we'll be able to get this to your fans and to devices across the world in near real time as well. And this is, we are working really hard. I know a lot of people, as Tian said, came and asked the question is like, oh, does it take days, minutes? But this proves that we can actually do this in seconds. And that this is only possible because of the great team that we have built at Unity, engineers, researchers, designers, user experience designers, because this is a new medium. This is something that we haven't seen before. This is not 2D. And what we want to make sure that we have a group of smart people working together to design, or at least show the world how this is going to look like. And then obviously there are so many use cases out of there. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Please reach out to us via this email or come find us at the booth. We're happy to answer any questions, nerd out on the technology, or discuss business use cases. Please come find us. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
It's not bad, is it? It's not bad. It's not bad. Fantastic. Really impressive stuff, and really interesting, building off what Peter was talking about yesterday to get into a bit of the detail. Do send any questions in. We've got a few minutes to field those. Slido.com, hashtag leaders is the code, or on the app, click on speaker interaction, and you'll be able to type in your question and they'll come through automatically. One question that has come in already is around the challenges that rights holders will face as they roll this solution out. What do you think will be the biggest challenge from a rights holder perspective as they look to deploy your solution?
So I think fundamentally this is a brand new media format, and I think I stressed this many times, and that this is not video footage. So it does have business implications in terms of the rights and the commercial operations that need to happen. And fundamentally, if you're the content IP owner, you can think about how you're going to leverage this brand new media format and think about how do you license that out and how do you get it into the hands of other content creators and rights holders. Whether this is going to be a new media package or a new content package, we'll leave it to the experts who are, the sports leagues and the IP owners. Yeah, and it's a brand new opportunity, I think, that represents new monetization mechanisms for everyone across the sports ecosystem.
Another question here that might be one for you, Shrey, around, well, the question is, what are the sports that this will work best for? And are there any sports that you're still trying to figure out where and how this solution could fit?
I mean, like you've seen the 3 demos. Like we've gone from an octagon where it's a closed space with 2 fighters in it and maybe a referee at some point. But then we've also shown the rugby demo, which is basically a large-scale, stadium-wide, capturing 20 plus players at the simultaneously. So we've done the 2 sides. I feel like we've done the 2 sides of the spectrum where it's the easy ones, which we feel is the octagon, and that's why we're starting with that, and hopefully we get that done. But I feel the sports those are the kind of sports where it's like, okay, you have enough space to put the cameras in, and you can capture it with detail. Sports that we can't do, like, I don't know, like I feel like it's like we've talked about, maybe we've talked about like F1 was one of the sports that we chatted about, and it was like, what can we do there? So there are challenges in different kinds of sports, but I feel like the technology can be applied to all the sports if we feel like. It's just that how do we do it is going to be the challenge, and where do we put the cameras in?
Go. Tian.
Yeah, I was going to say it also depends. You need to think about what experience you're building. Are you trying to create a live streamed or VOD replay of the actual match itself, or are you simply trying to create fan engagement experience in which the actual fitting and installation inside the actual venue doesn't matter, and you can simply send LeBron to a capture stage and do what we did and create more of an engagement experience rather than a stream or a replay of the actual match itself. So the technology is very flexible, and it fundamentally comes down to what is your end content goal, and all of that can be worked backwards.
Yeah, and from a technology perspective, I think the hardest challenge is like the occlusion bit of it. Like it's like, you put the cameras in, but like if there's a sport where there's a lot of occlusion, or like the players are now visible, or the ball is now visible, we are applying our machine learning and deep learning algorithms, and we're progressing with that. But still, there is time where if cameras cannot see it, then the reconstruction becomes a little harder. So sports where it gets harder, where it's like, and we've solved kind of that. If you saw it in UFC, they were on the ground, and Peter kind of mentioned that on that stage. Is like, when they were on the ground, there was still occlusion, a bit of occlusion, but we were able to solve it using ML and AI. So we are progressing in that direction. So that's why there's no definite answer like this sport cannot be done. It's just that we have to sit down and understand like, what are we capturing, as Tian said, and then second is like, what kind of experience do we deliver on that?
And presumably, Shrey, that you are learning more with literally every minute, I would imagine, about how this technology works and what it can do.
Yes, exactly. So I think that's the key fundamental point here is like this technology is evolving so rapidly. The ecosystem is growing. The interest is growing. There are a lot of research going on how, and even our teams are doing a lot of research on how to optimize the whole process, how to reduce 100 cameras from like go down to like 50 or 20 cameras at some point. So as we research, as we learn, we'll be able to solve some of the difficult problems. And these are traditional problems, and they have existed for a while.
Is that where, if you can reduce the number of cameras, presumably reduce the cost, is that where you feel there's a point where this becomes sort of mainstream accessible, for want of a better phrase? Is that where you're looking to get to?
Exactly. So at some point, because it's again data, as Tian said, the more data we have, the more intelligent decisions we can make. And one of them is how do we reduce the number of cameras? How do we reduce the load on the infrastructure? Because this is a massive amount of data. You're capturing so many cameras, imagine. So I think the intelligence will kick in at some point, and we'll be this is where we start pulling off cameras, and we can do it in 20 to 30 cameras.
And I do also want to mention that ultimately in the future, all you're talking about is cameras are going to be everywhere on your phones. So actually it's not even in the future anymore. We have seen smartphone captured volumetric reconstruction. What does that mean? That means you're effectively going to, in the not so far distant future, create volumetric content and deliver that by anyone with a phone. And it's truly going to democratize this data format. And you can put that into a video game. You can put that into just in AR right next to me, inside any other content. So this technology is quickly developing and evolving. And as everyone from hardware providers to software providers all progress together, this is going to be the future that's going to elevate just content in general.
Just on that, and you mentioned, Tian, the rights situations, and obviously every sport has different rights models, and there's different approaches that are going to be needed there, or changes, or maybe models that need to be broken. How are you viewing that? Are you viewing that as something that is not directly your challenge, even though it's obviously the ability for rights holders to take this solution and integrate it into what they're doing somehow is going to be pretty fundamental to how successful this is. So how are you sort of looking at the rights side of things?
For Unity ourselves, we are currently, everything that we talked about is fundamentally providing a platform, a tool set. Think about, Adobe Creative Cloud. Think about how you traditionally create content. We're providing that, and we're going to give it to both consumers and professionals, prosumers. Anyone who wants to create volumetric content, this is a tool set for the time being. Now, we are currently exploring, potentially thinking about what does it mean when we bring this directly to the consumer. Unity is currently working on a consumer business, and so what that means, we will see in the future.
And it's also think about this is gonna be the future. This is we will visualize things in 3D because we live in a 3D world. We for the last decade or 2 decades or 3 decades, we've just been watching our screens, our mobile phones, our televisions, and it's all 2D. So we believe that the world will be full of 3D content, and as Tian said, you can capture 3D content from your phone with the new iPhones with the LiDAR. At some point, this is going to be a common thing. So this is going to be the way we visualize things in the world. And we hope that a lot of people, a lot of leagues and everybody, they want to jump on this and see this, because you can do so much much more with this platform rather than just a 2D broadcast.
Peter touched on this yesterday, but it might just be worth your views and perspectives on this as well. Just as Unity as a wider business, and you've obviously made your name working in other sectors. So what are the key things, and maybe pick one of those sectors, that you have learned that is really informing this sports solution? What would you say?
I think from the rendering perspective, Tian can talk about what we've learned as a business as a whole, as a business unit. But from a technical perspective, I think because of the engine itself and the power of the engine, it is real time. What you see on the screen, it's happening right there. It's not like you're waiting for something to happen. The things that we learned from gaming, the learnings of optimization, running it on a mobile phone, anywhere in the world. So all these learning from the actual engine is being now applied to this. So you see 5 million voxels that, as Peter said the other day, that's a lot of data to be rendered on a tiny mobile device, with memory constraints, with the power. We are optimizing so that anybody anywhere in the world can pick up an iPhone or an Android phone, doesn't matter, or even a VR headset. And Unity, as Tian mentioned, we support 20 different platforms. That means you just have to build it once, and we will deploy it to all 20 different platforms, if you like, anywhere from web, VR, headset, MR, mixed reality. Imagine you're sitting here and you can have the entire field in front of you. So we're taking the underlying technology. We've learned so much from our engines for the past 10 years, 15 years. We've optimized it for devices, and now we're taking volumetric, which is a very difficult, it's very difficult to render on a tiny mobile device, and all that will, I think, help us.
Oh yeah, and I was just going to say, what we see is, tapping into the collective creative abilities of everyone, including everyone in this room. Traditionally, you think of Unity as a game engine, and you need to be a developer that knows C# and programming in order to build such experiences. What we have learned over the past 5+ years trying to grow into other industries is that there are creators, architects, designers, broadcast producers, directors, film and media entertainment executives. Everyone should be able to create interactive 3D content in the future, and this should be a tool that's given to everyone without requiring them to learn how to code. And that is the direction we're working towards, giving artists tools, creative tools, and all of these to democratize the adoption for everyone to be creators.
We've got a question here from Daniel Cody. Thank you for sending that in, Daniel. And last call for questions, by the way, slido.com, #leaders or via the app. How do you envisage this technology changing the sports betting landscape?
Okay. So fundamentally, what Unity is a data visualization engine. So what we aim to do is be able to connect all the different hooks that are generating and keeping and tracking data, regardless of whether it's user data, engagement data, or actually metadata, how you're watching and touching and orbiting, how you're using it. And of course, there's going to be betting data. We want to be able to connect all of those, but instead of showing them in Excel format, a bunch of rows of data, make it meaningful and contextual and bring it to the consumer so that if something were to happen, then immediately in real time, I'm able to, in a very easily consumable fashion, make certain bets, whether it's fantasy or real money, whether it's on your phone, whether it's on your fantasy draft. That is how we see how we're going to change sports betting.
And I think in addition to that, like the data archive that we're building. So if we're collecting volumetric data over time, then what we have is an archive of all this that has happened. So when you're betting, you could go back in history and see what happens and how your team was performing, how that player was performing, and then you can make better decisions. So if you go to the booth and you pick up the rugby demo, you see different layers of visualization, different ways that we can visualize, like the missed tackle in rugby. If you can understand like this player, how many times he has missed, and you can actually visualize it rather than as going through a spreadsheet and figuring out which player was who, you can be in that 3D world and do that comparison either in the live real-time aspect or even in an archive or a historic data aspect.
I think we want to make sports betting, which currently is, I think, frankly, I don't do it because I feel like it's too much focused on the data analytics. But I think certain people like it. They love the deeply analytical aspect of sports betting and fantasy. That's great. But if you want to grow this industry and get people to actually lean into this sector, I think you need to capitalize more like on the social aspect of it, the sport itself, rather than having to have a PhD in statistics and understanding everything about every player in order to enjoy this process. And Unity wants to bring that to people.
It's interesting, actually. Unity as a business is obviously coming into sport, and this is your sort of your big launch, certainly in London, and it's been a pleasure to host you all over the last couple of days. You obviously have Peter, who comes in with his huge experience from the world of sport, most recently as the CEO of Liverpool. For you two working on this solution, what have you learnt about the sports industry? Give the sports industry a bit of an appraisal so far. What are the things that you're finding that actually are really working in the industry, and where are the bits and pieces you mentioned, Tian, maybe there as it relates to sports betting, where you see there's a little bit of room for improvement?
I have a simple one. I think so. What I realize is like I have a few sports that I do watch and I like that, but there are a few sports that I actually was not into that much, as Tian said, like because of the data and like the way the game was played. I obviously understood the rules, but it was just like I would miss the action most of the time, and that was like it was a broadcast feed. It might be on my phone, on my iPad, but at some point when we started looking at this, we were like, what if there was a moment I could pause time and actually watch, like if it's a baseball match, what if I could pause it and actually see the ball go and really go into the, as you saw like with the missed tackle stuff, is like the indicators, indicating where the ball is going, the trajectory of the ball, just understanding all of that made me much more involved into the sport itself, like made me part of the sport and became interactive rather than just like one-way information coming in. And that made me think about is like, oh, that's how the game is played. So for us, it was more about how we can bring a lot of people who traditionally don't watch sports or are not into sports that much. How can we make it fun, as Tian said? And at Unity, like for years, we've been building games and we've been building to get people involved. I think that's going to be a big key change for this. Like with this technology, you can involve people who are traditionally not into sports.
Sorry, Tian.
And then I think on my end, it's the realization that sports as an industry as a whole, in order, this is brand new territory for us, and of course we're learning very quickly, but it takes every single stakeholder all moving together and advancing together in order to make all of this work. So even if we just talk about making volumetric work in sports, you're right, we have to tap into the IP owners. We're going to have to tap into the rights holders, the broadcasters. The marketers and sponsors need to buy into it. And fundamentally, we need to get all the technology, the underlying infrastructure, the carriers, the networking companies, the computers, the compute providers, cloud providers, everyone, devices, data partners. It really takes everyone working together to advance this and for this to be adopted, but we don't think this is too far off into the future.
A couple of quickfire questions that have come in. Benjamin Akeem has asked about what is the network infrastructure needed globally to run the technology at optimum level?
That's an interesting one. I think we can spend some more time after we're done with the QA, but I'll give you a quick answer. I think again, it depends upon the experience. Like, what is the end user looking at? Like if it's what you saw as the demo. I think the network infrastructure we need is like it's already in place. We're going to piggyback on most of it. We have the AWS and the Googles of the world already building the infrastructure. Like we have CDNs, and we've been using CDNs for like Netflix, for any of the video streaming. So we're going to piggyback on that. So we're not going to completely redesign a new network for it or a network architecture for it. What we're trying to do is find the optimization will come in closer to the edge. That's what we believe. Rather than like optimizing for what the infrastructure is right now, we'll optimize it next to the user. And that helps us like to scale up quickly because it already exists. All we have to do is just piggyback on it.
Another quickfire question that has come in. What is the impact of volumetric data and this technology on sustainability? For example, the power required to compute and store.
Yeah, so this is actually a very interesting conversation like we had earlier. So we have to see like the processing power and everything. It's limited to like 4 server racks, so it's not like it's massive. Like we need an entire server farm to do this. At some point, when the cameras go down and when the technology progresses, we could do this off of 1 server rack, which is like you could just place it in the stadium and do that. The sustainability is it's an exciting question, is because think about what we're doing here. People come to the stadium, people in their cars, and then people travel from all places, and then they come to the stadium. And there's a limited audience that can be there at the stadium. Imagine we had to build bigger stadiums for more people to come in. That means more resources would be required, more people driving, trucks with infrastructure, and like all the setups and everything is coming in. So we are adding, like we are putting on the environment itself, like we are in a phase where we want more people to come to the stadium because we want more fans to look at the game. What we give the ability to do is take that and actually send it to your living room. and you can experience it right is that. So that's the balance that we are looking at, that we are also able to get to more people without their burning up the resources and balance that out.
Final question, and it's a very simple one. You've been with us for a couple of days. As Tian said, if you haven't been to the booth, go and check it out down on the exhibition floor. What's your message to the sports industry as you launch this and give us a sense of what the future of consumption and immersive content consumption might be?
Sure. Look, everyone is already thinking about how do you prolong your sport and how do you tap into the next generation and the next generation. You need to find them and tap into them and deliver to them what they're looking for, when they want it and where they want it. And you know, society is going to continue to change, and that is why Unity has a special perspective on the future of the metaverse. And again, it's really about bringing together virtual and physical together. And so I think my message is that, you know, for the sports industry, you can't hold on to the same model forever. And if we are already seeing changes and shifts and putting importance on esports, on digital, on social media, volumetric is the next step. It's going to be there, and it's going to be the next evolution in how the sports experience and the management is going to be done. So encourage everyone to really think about, how do you leverage this? This is truly digital. How do you leverage this in the way that you do your business?
And this is not a 2x improvement, this is a 10x improvement. That's what we believe the future is. We are invested heavily into this because we know this is going to completely change and revolutionize like what we see today.
Fantastic. Good note on which to end. There are a couple more questions that have come in, but I know Tian and Shrey are very happy to answer questions sort of on a more one-to-one basis as we conclude this session. Really fascinating, and as I said, really great to have had you with us at Leaders Week over the past couple of days. Just a quick shout for our next session happening on this stage. It's at 2:50 this afternoon with the Williams Formula One team and PumpJack DataWorks talking about fan data, how it's collected, how it's used. It's going to be good. In the meantime, lunch is served across Twickenham, and it is a very good lunch today, I have heard. So do head for that. But Tian, Shrey, once again, thank you ever so much indeed.